I'd always dreamed of living by a lake. After 27 years designing highway overpasses and drainage systems, trust me, not as glamorous as it sounds, I cashed out, bought a modest A-frame cabin by Hemlock Lake, and settled in. Picture this: a quiet blue stretch of water hugged by pine trees, my backyard sloping down to a patch of reeds, and an old wooden dock where I'd wander out barefoot every morning, thermos in hand, to fish in the mist. I paid for the land in full. No mortgage, no liens, and definitely no HOA nonsense. Or so I thought. That dream came crashing down one morning with a sound I'll never forget: a heavy plop into the water. I grabbed my fishing pole and bolted to the dock, expecting a big catch or maybe a clumsy duck. Instead, I found myself staring at a shiny new wrought iron gate, glinting in the sun like it was mocking me. Behind it, a silver plaque screamed, "Private HOA access only. Violators will be prosecuted." My dock, my lake, my property, blocked off like I was some trespasser in my own backyard. And the cherry on top? A security camera, blinking red like it was flipping me off. I stood there slack-jawed, wondering what kind of stupid, sinister game was afoot. Later that afternoon, the answer came strutting up my gravel path in a lavender blouse and wedge sandals that had no business on loose rocks. Meet Karen Roush, HOA president, clipboard clutched to her chest like it was the Holy Grail. Before I could even open my mouth, she flashed a tight-lipped smile and waved at the gate like she was unveiling a game show prize. "Hello there," she chirped. "We've installed a protective barrier around the lake access, strictly for residents within the association. You understand, of course, liability concerns." I blinked. "I live right here. This is my lake access." Karen tilted her head and laughed, like I just told a cute but dumb joke. "Well, technically, the access strip sits on a parcel now maintained by the Hemlock Shores Homeowners Association. You must have missed the notices we sent, several, actually." She tapped her clipboard like it was proof of her righteousness. "Safety first, right?" My blood pressure spiked so hard I could hear it buzzing in my ears. "Karen, I didn't get a single notice. And how do you even get permission to build this? That land's not part of your HOA." "Oh, but it is now," she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "The HOA acquired the lease last fall. It was managed by the old bait shop owner, bless his soul, until he passed. It reverted to open bid. We secured it and redesignated it as common HOA property." She smiled again, like she'd just explained gravity to a toddler. I stared at her, trying to untangle her twisted logic. The bait shop, a rickety shack that used to sell minnows and soda, sat on a narrow strip between my property and the lake. I'd always assumed it was part of my deed or a county easement. Turns out I was wrong, and Karen had swooped in like a hawk snatching a rabbit. "Let me guess," I said, voice tight. "You didn't tell anyone who lived nearby?" "It was discussed in our October meeting. Fully above board," she replied, chipper as ever. "You're welcome to submit a formal appeal, though as a non-member, I'm afraid you won't have voting rights." She turned and strode off, leaving me stunned. I wasn't even part of her HOA. I'd bought this land years before her subdivision crept in. Yet somehow, this neighborhood dictator had roped off my lake access and declared it hers without so much as a knock on my door. The next day, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I grabbed my bolt cutters, channeling my inner renegade freedom fighter, and marched to the gate. I'd barely snipped one link when Karen materialized with a security guard in tow, calling the sheriff like I was some master criminal. The deputy showed up, looking as confused as I felt. After checking property maps, he confirmed the bad news. While I owned the cabin and surrounding land, the strip with the dock and gate was under an HOA lease. Legally, I couldn't touch it. Karen watched the whole thing unfold like she was sipping a martini at the opera. By the end of the week, a warning sign went up: "Do not trespass, $1,000 fine." That blinking camera kept staring at me, and I felt like a prisoner in my own home. Desperate, I tried the diplomatic route, attending an HOA meeting. Big mistake. It was like walking into a soap opera run by suburban villains. Everyone was either terrified of Karen or hypnotized by her control freak energy. One guy even said, "You're not on the lake list anymore." I almost laughed. What the hell was a lake list? Then came the kicker. Karen had the only key to the gate's lock. She turned my peaceful retreat into her personal fiefdom. For a few days, I sulked. What could I do? Hire a lawyer and bleed thousands to reclaim a tiny sliver of land? Dig a tunnel under the fence like a cartoon inmate? I even toyed with building a floating dock and launching a kayak invasion just to mess with her. But then I saw it, a for sale sign on the parcel next to the gated strip. The sign was discreet, tacked up on a narrow lot split by some legal quirk from the land Karen had leased. I pulled out my phone, called the number, and got a real estate agent who practically begged me to make an offer. The seller? An elderly woman in Alaska who'd inherited the land from her late husband and forgotten it existed. That night, I sat on my porch, sipping coffee under the stars, watching the gate glow faintly in the moonlight. And I grinned. If Karen wanted control so badly, she was about to get it, just not the way she expected. 2 weeks later, the paperwork was done. The deed was mine. I was now the proud owner of a narrow, overlooked, and suddenly invaluable strip of land, the one with the gate posts buried in its dirt. Here's the kicker. When Karen leased her parcel, she'd assumed the other half was part of the same plot, just like I had. But it wasn't. It was for sale, and I'd snagged it for less than the cost of a new fishing boat. Poetic, right? She'd locked me out, and now I owned the lock. I waited a week before making my move, just long enough for the gate to become a fixture in the HOA's mind, for Karen to get cozy with her little power trip. The lake was hosting its annual HOA summer brunch soon, set to happen right on the other side of my former dock. Now her exclusive community retreat. I watched from my deck with popcorn as they set up folding chairs, a white tent, and, get this, a chocolate fountain. The pretension was off the charts. The morning of the event, I strolled down to the gate with a lockpick kit in my pocket. Not to break in, but to change the lock entirely. I swapped her flimsy padlock for a heavy-duty one, the kind you'd see on a military ammo crate. Click! It snapped shut like a judge's gavel. Then I stuck up a simple, weatherproof sign, private property, access by owner permission only. Nothing dramatic, just the facts. That afternoon, HOA members rolled up in pastel polos and sun hats. Karen marched to the gate, clipboard in hand, smug grin blazing. She reached for her key. It didn't fit. She tried again. Nope. She jiggled it, twisted it, even banged it against the gate, her face turning redder by the second. Finally, she turned to the crowd and, with the tightest smile imaginable, said, "There's been a small technical issue with the lock. It'll be resolved momentarily." I sipped my lemonade and waited. When she looked up and saw me, I waved, then tossed her a copy of the deed. She read it like it was in Klingon, her jaw flapping silently. This must be a mistake," she stammered. "You can't just buy community property." "You're right," I said, leaning casually against the fence. "That's why I didn't. I bought my property, the one your gate's standing on, all the way to that big rock over there." I pointed, and her face twisted like she'd bitten into a lemon rind. "But we installed this gate," she shrieked. "The HOA funded it, and I own the soil under it," I said calmly. "Which means it's mine. In fact, I was thinking of replacing it with a hammock." That got a laugh from the crowd. Karen's eyes widened, but the tide was turning. A few board members looked uncomfortable. One even smirked. She stormed off, phone glued to her ear, demanding an emergency session. I let her go. There was no session that could save her from this. Karen wasn't done, though. First, she tried the water. HOA boats, paddle boats, and little skiffs started drifting in from the far end of the lake, docking on my land like it was a public park. I asked one couple what they were doing. "Oh, we were told this is part of the community lakefront," the guy said, holding a picnic basket. Karen sent a newsletter about new boat landing zones. I pointed to my sign, "Private property. Parcel number 2483. Trespassing not permitted." They blinked and shuffled off. Then came the buoys, bright orange, strung with netting, cordoning off my side of the lake. A sign read, "Community swim area. HOA members only." I called the county. They sent someone out, checked the property lines and water access zones, and ruled the buoys unauthorized. Within a week, they were gone. Karen's next move? She went digital. From Florida, Yep, she'd moved. She launched Save Our Shoreline, a crusade complete with a Facebook group, YouTube rants, and TikToks filmed in front of a green screen Hemlock Lake. She called me a greedy gate goblin and claimed I'd weaponized bureaucracy to oppress the neighborhood. One video even had stock footage of crying kids and confused ducks. It was unhinged, and it went viral. Her online tantrum backfired spectacularly. Reddit threads popped up, tearing her videos apart. Someone dug up her old Yelp rants. Another titled the post, "Karen tried to fence a lake and got wrecked by a fishing grandpa." I became a meme, my fishing chair and lemonade captioned with "You shall not base" and "Gatekeeping done right." A local news station ran a feel-good piece, and strangers started calling me about documentaries. I just wanted to fish, not star in Gate Wars, the movie. Meanwhile, Stephanie, the sharp-witted HOA secretary, uncovered dirt. Karen had blown $88,000 of HOA funds on fencing and safety enhancements, including a spa retreat booked under her niece's name, without approval. The board called an audit, suspended her, and she resigned 2 days later, blaming a toxic environment. Then the county fined her $10,000 for zoning violations tied to her forged gate permit. Her online presence went dark after one last cryptic post, moving on to better waters. Good riddance. I wasn't done yet. With help from my buddy Brian, a municipal zoning engineer, we found a gem in the property records. Because my strip was under 6 feet wide in spots and not essential infrastructure, it qualified as a non-commercial preservation zone. I filed the paperwork, and 2 weeks later, my land became a restricted eco-habitat. No development, no events, no HOA nonsense, legally untouchable. The county even gave me a sign, Environmental Rest Corridor. Then I made my final play. I removed the padlock and left the gate wide open, replacing it with a post and a laminated sign. Access granted by courtesy. Respect earns welcome. Entitlement earns nothing. It wasn't about control anymore. It was about principle. To my surprise, people started asking permission. Kids fished, retirees strolled, and one guy even dropped off a six-pack as thanks. The lake healed, and so did the neighborhood. Kara made one last cameo. A year later, a silver sedan pulled up at sunset. She stepped out, sunglasses, floral scarf, flats too white for dirt, and stared at the gate like it was a ghost. She didn't rant or film. She just pulled a small box from her bag, peeked inside, then closed it and left. Before driving off, she called out, "Still got the key?" I raised my thermos. "Still don't need to use it." She nodded faintly and was gone. A few weeks earlier, she'd mail me a letter. No apology, just a formal note about reevaluating leadership and joining anti-HOA advocacy groups in her new state. I didn't reply. Silence felt stronger. Besides, I had fish to catch. Life settled into a rhythm I hadn't felt since moving here. The HOA rewrote its bylaws with Stephanie at the helm, focusing on transparency and inclusion. Kids like Mason, a teen who'd rather ask than sneak, fished with me. The gate stood open, a weathered monument to a war won with patience and a well-timed deed. At a Lake Appreciation Day, Stephanie ambushed me with a plaque in recognition of community integrity and unmatched patience. I tried to wave it off, but the crowd, kids with signs like "Thanks, Gate Guy," wouldn't let me. As I stood on my dock that night, thermos in hand, the lake shimmering gold, I set Karen's old, rusted padlock on the gate post. It wasn't about gloating, it was about remembering. A year ago, I'd been locked out. Now, people walk through freely on my terms. Don't be a jerk. The gate wasn't a barrier anymore. It was a story. And the best part? I could finally fish in peace.